Negotiations between the United Auto Workers Union and the big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, are quickly approaching.
Now reports say two of the big three companies scored very well on quality reports while the majority of the industry slid. Yet Ford is preparing for another round of layoffs.
Here to break down some of the biggest headlines in the auto world is the executive editor of Automotive News, Jamie Butters. Jamie, thanks for joining us tonight.
You bet. Glad to be here.
So let's start with Ford and these job cuts. How many are we talking, and what's the rationale?
You know, we don't know yet. Our reporters have confirmed what the Journal reported earlier. They're looking at another round of salaried job cuts. Probably not as many as there were earlier in the year, which was in the low four digits. So hopefully it's not quite as bad. A lot of times in years when there's union negotiations, you'll see some salary job cuts to show that the pain is being spread evenly, that everyone's sharing in the sacrifice. It's not to say that that's what this is about. Jim Farley has been frustrated with the profitability and efficiency of the operation. So this isn't just for show. They're just trying to get everything lined up and competitive, to compete with Tesla and everyone else.
How do you think these layoffs, potential layoffs, will affect negotiations with the union?
Not directly. The UAW has taken a really combative tone under the new leadership. I'm not sure this is going to change the tenor of the conversation particularly, but it does take away some of the argument that, hey, the automakers are making all this money, the executives are all getting paid, and the workers aren't getting anything.
So, Jamie, let's talk about this study by J.D. Power, the initial quality study. We have Dodge and GM doing very well. They ranked very highly when it comes to build quality, but the industry as a whole not looking so great. What is it about new vehicles that appear to be problematic more than they were in the past?
It's always been difficult when you have especially new launches or redesign models. I think a lot of what's going on here is, production was so challenging during the pandemic. It was hard to get the supply of parts, and the production was really inconsistent. Factories like to run, steady, steady 2 shifts a day, 5 days a week. And when production is up and down, you just get a lot of mistakes. I think maybe also there's some speculation that all the engineers working from home meant maybe they weren't as focused or able to collaborate as well. A lot of just, kind of dumb mistakes, problems with doors and things that should have been solved a long time ago. So we're seeing a lot of challenges. This is 2 years in a row that quality has gotten worse. And I mean, I've been covering this industry for 25 years and quality always just gets better. So this is a really unusual setback. Hopefully, as we work our way out of the pandemic, quality across the board resumes getting better.
When you talk about these potential layoffs, how much in your mind, from everything you know, is corporate greed versus we just don't need these workers anymore and we can't afford these workers anymore?
It's curious because the automakers have had, really strong profits during the pandemic. The supply of vehicles was so short, they made the highest end models they could and sold them all without hardly any discounts. A lot of vehicles sold above sticker price, so dealers made a lot of money too. But they face a huge challenge to electrify. Electric vehicles cost a lot more to make. You run the risk of pricing out the markets. There's a lot of investment that needs to go into the batteries, into battery chemistry, into new vehicle designs. So, yeah, they have a lot of money, but they need a lot of money to get across, what's AlixPartners is a big consulting firm. They call it the profit desert until EVs can start making money. You think about Tesla, they lost money for more than a decade before they started turning first small profits and now pretty substantial ones.
So you published a column, Jamie, suggesting you are not too enthused or excited for the auto show this year. Why is that?
Well, last year's show was the first one after the pandemic, and it was a challenge. And there really was only the Detroit 3 brands and Toyota and Subaru. This year, to try to whip up some excitement, the show organizers said they were going to have double the brands, and that's just not going to happen. My reporters, Automotive News reporters, surveyed the market. We found at least 17 brands who said they're not going to be at the Detroit Auto Show this year, one of which was Subaru. So, we had only one non-Detroit 3 brand last year, or only 2 last year, maybe only 1 this year. We'll see if maybe they can pick up a few others. It's not that it's going to be terrible per se. It's just that it's not going, may not be any better than last year. And last year's was pretty disappointing. They didn't even announce what the attendance was, which has always been standard practice.
What do you think it'll take to get them back? And also, what innovations do you expect at the auto show, which, of course, is a huge one here?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be really hard to get non-Detroit brands to come back. The nature of auto shows has shifted away from, big media news events like they were when it was the North American International Auto Show from 1989 until the pandemic. They've really become reverted to being consumer events, which is fine and cool. And we have three great automakers that are based here. But we've got to have, all the fun things for people to do. It's also just been a challenge with the show being in September instead of January. In some ways, it opens up some opportunities for indoor, outdoor activities, but people in Michigan, people in Detroit have a lot of other fun things they can do in September. You've got college football, you still have baseball going on. Up north is fun, so there's a lot more competition for people's entertainment dollars and time in September.
Yeah, that's true. We're struggling in the winter, on the other hand. All right, Jamie Butters, Executive Director of Automotive News, thanks so much for joining us today.
Anytime.